One more, page 34. The Six Dharma Gates to the Sublime. Chapter 2, the Six Gates in the terms of sequential development. Let's start here. Cultivation. Cultivation, as for cultivation of contemplation in the midst of the mind immersed in absorption. One employs wisdom to make distinction, one contemplates the fine and subtle features of the breath as it goes forth and comes in. It's like a wind in the midst of space. The skin, the flesh, the sinews, the bones, the 36 categories of things making up the body are all just as devoid of substantially as the colorless plantain. Even the consciousness of one's mind is impermanent, it does not abide even for a sun. Neither oneself nor anyone else exists. The dharma of the body, feeling, and the mind are all devoid of any inherently existent nature. One is unable to ultimately apprehend the existence of any person or any dharma. On what then could meditative absorption possibly depend? This is what is meant by the cultivation of contemplation. 2. Realization. As for the realization of contemplation, when one is contemplating in this manner, one becomes aware of the breath entering, exiting, and pervading the entire body, extending even to all of the hair pores. The mind's eye opens with clarity, and one thoroughly sees 36 things composing the body, as well as the organs and organisms therein. The inward and outward impurity and the change occurring even in the every sana. The mind becomes both saddening and delight. One gains the realization of the fourth station of mindfulness and destroys the four inverted views. This is what is meant by realization of contemplation. Once the characteristic features of contemplation have developed, the mind takes the domain that is contemplated as an objective condition and proceeds then to make distinctions and deconstructing analysis with regard to it. One consequentially becomes aware that allowing the onward flowing movement of thought does not amount to a reality-based path. At such a time, one should then relinquish the process of contemplation and proceed instead to cultivate turning. Turning is itself of two different sorts. The first, the cultivation of turning, the second, realization of turning. As for the cultivation of turning, once one has realized that contemplation itself arises from mind, and once one has also understood that if one continues to follow along with the analysis of the objective sphere, this does not by itself directly bring about convergence with the original source. One should then turn back the direction of one's contemplation so that one now contemplates now the very mind that is engaged in contemplation. As for this mind which engaged in contemplation, from what does it arise? It is generated by contemplative thought, or is generated by something other than contemplative thought. If it is the case that is generated by contemplative thought, then it should also be the case that there was a pre-existing contemplation process already underway. But in the present situation, this is certainly not the case. Why not? Because there was not yet anything in the midst of the three immediately preceding dharmas of content, following, stabilization, and so forth that was identifiable with this process of contemplation. If it is the case that contemplative thought arose from a mind not involved in contemplation, it is the case that the mind not involved in contemplation generated when that non-contemplating thought had already ceased, or instead produced it when that non-contemplating thought had not yet ceased. If it's the case that it produced it when that non-contemplating thought had not ceased, then this would be a case that two thoughts existing simultaneously. If one were to suppose that it was generated by a dharma which had already ceased to exist, one should realize that once an extinct dharma has already disappeared, it is no longer able to generate any contemplative thought process. If one were to claim that it was generated from that which had ceased and yet not ceased, or if one were to go so far as to claim that it was generated from that which had neither ceased nor not ceased, in all such cases those antecedent causes cannot ultimately be apprehended. One should therefore realize that contemplative mind itself was originally produced. Because it was unproduced, it does not exist. Because it does not exist, it's just empty of inherent existence. Because it's empty of inherent existence, there is no mind engaged in the process of contemplation. If there is no contemplative mind, how could there be an objective sphere which serves as the objective contemplation? The separation of both the objective sphere and the faculty of knowing the essential factor in turning back to the source, this is the characteristic feature of the cultivation of turning. That's it. One more. Page 37.